I genuinely think NCSoft has learned absolutely nothing from Throne and Liberty. They just announced AION 2 globally and somehow they've already managed to upset a huge portion of the MMO community before the game is even out. The release date doesn't make any sense, the founders packs are honestly some of the worst value I've ever seen, and somehow they're repeating one of Throne and Liberty's biggest launch mistakes all over again. Whether that's intentional or they're just completely out of touch with what Western MMO players actually want, I don't know anymore. But one thing is certain, almost every major piece of player feedback since the global announcement has either been ignored or doubled down on. Let me explain. So let's start with the release date. When the global announcement trailer dropped, right at the very end it proudly said that AION 2 was coming in September 2026. Perfect. Hype immediately started building, people started planning guilds, talking about launch classes, making YouTube videos. People were excited. And then naturally, when you tell people September 2026, they're going to assume, well, September. Most people expected an early September release, maybe the first week, maybe the second week. Nobody knew the exact date, obviously, but that's the expectation NCSoft themselves created. Then things got even more interesting. A release date suddenly appeared inside Purple, NCSoft's own launcher, September 17th. Now before anyone jumps into the comments, yes, I know, leaks are leaks, they're never official. You should always take them with a grain of salt. But let's be honest here, when a leak comes from your own launcher, people are naturally going to think there's at least some truth behind it. Meanwhile, the Steam simply said September 2026. Everything still pointed towards one thing, September. Fast forward to the founder pack announcement. And this is where things immediately started feeling weird. Because along with all the founder pack details, NCSoft finally revealed the early access date, September 30th. Hold on, if early access starts on September 30th and early access lasts 5 days, then the official launch is October 5th. That's not September, that's October. And before someone says, well, technically they're still releasing something in September. Come on, you know exactly what people mean when they hear releasing in September. The expectation isn't that people who spend the money get to play in September while everyone else waits until October. The expectation is that the game releases in September for everyone. And look, I'm not even upset that the launch is a few days later, games get delayed, the development takes time. But if you weren't completely confident that the game would fully launch in September, then just say fall 2026. It just feels unnecessary and a little misleading. Again, this isn't some massive scandal. The game isn't suddenly ruined because it launches a few days later. This was simply the first red flag. Unfortunately, it wasn't the last. When NCSoft first announced the founder packs, one thing immediately stood out: 5-day early access. Now at first that doesn't sound like a huge deal. If it was any other multiplayer game, who honestly cares? You're 5 days behind, whatever. But this is an MMORPG, and MMO launches are completely different. Those first few days are when everything starts. Guilds get formed, the economy begins, crafting materials are worth ridiculous amounts of money, people raise to the max level, communities are built. Some of the most memorable moments in MMOs happen during launch week. So no, those 5 days aren't just 5 days. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of paid head starts in MMO. I've always preferred everyone starting together. But honestly, the head start itself isn't even my biggest issue. The real problem is what NCSoft decided to do with those players. They decided to split the community into two completely separate server ecosystems. One for early access players, one for launch players. And the moment I saw that, my first thought was, haven't we literally just done this? Alright, we did, Throne and Liberty. Surely they wouldn't repeat the exact same mistake. They repeated it. Now to be fair, NCSoft has explained how these server ecosystems will work. They even released a team update breaking everything down, explaining matchmaking, transfers, role interactions and what players should expect. I read the whole thing, and to save you the trouble, it's basically the same idea, different explanations. Maybe internally they have stats showing this was a successful system. Maybe player retention looked better, maybe monetization was higher. I don't know, but here's the thing. The community didn't like it. Because even today, when people talk about Throne and Liberty's launch, Separate early access servers are almost always brought up as one of the most controversial decisions surrounding it. Players felt pressured to buy early access because they didn't want to fall behind. Guilds ended up splitting, friend groups disbanded, some servers were populated more than the others. It created a divide before the game even had officially launched. And after months of feedback, months of players saying they didn't want this system again, NCSoft looked at all of that and somehow came to the conclusion: let's run it back. It's honestly impressive. Maybe this time it'll work better, but it feels like we're repeating history. And somehow, believe it or not, it actually gets even worse. Because after all of that, we finally got to see what was actually inside the founder packs. And wow, I think these are some of the worst value founder packs I've ever seen in over 20 years of playing MMOs. Every pack gives you the 5-day head start. The deluxe and ultimate editions also come with exclusive cosmetics, titles, mounts, and a few early game items. Cool, nothing wrong with cosmetics, people love cosmetics. But let's be honest with ourselves for a second. How exclusive are they really? Maybe they stay exclusive forever, maybe they don't. We've all played enough MMOs to know how often exclusive eventually turns into limited time cash drop item. But this is what shocked me. AION 2 has premium currency, it has a battle pass, it has a monthly subscription. And somehow none of those things are included in the founder packs. Nothing. Zero. 85 euros. For that amount of money, I expect to get something that actually improves my experience with the game. Not just permission to log in 5 days early and wear a cool outfit. And yeah, I know founder packs are just optional. Of course they are, nobody's forcing anyone to buy them. That's not the point. Founder packs are one of the first opportunities for developers to build trust with their community. They're basically saying, hey, thanks for believing in our game before it even launches. So if I'm willing to spend 85 euros supporting your MMO before releases, what message are you sending me in return? Because right now, to me at least, it feels like the answer is, thanks for the money. That's it. To me, that sends a really strange message. It almost feels like NCSoft isn't confident players will still be around a month after launch. And that's honestly why this whole situation frustrates me so much. Because underneath all these decisions, I actually think AION 2 is a really good MMORPG. The combat feels fantastic, the world looks beautiful, the graphics are great, the classes are genuinely fun. That's exactly why I'm making this video. If I thought that the game was complete garbage, I wouldn't care. I'd move on with my life and never think about it again. But I don't want that. The good news, every single one of these problems is still fixable. The game isn't out yet, nothing is set in stone. NCSoft still has time to change things. Let's start with the release. Personally, I still think there should have been some kind of open beta or a stress test before launch. And yes, I know that the game is already playable in Korea and Taiwan. I've played it, but that's not the point. A Western open beta does a lot more than just let people play early. It lets players test performance, it lets guilds organize, it lets creators make guides. It lets NCSoft stress test the servers. It lets players who are still on the fence actually decide whether this game is worth investing in. Everybody wins. I still think that the leaked September 17 date means something. Maybe it's an open beta, maybe it's a stress test, maybe I'm completely coping. Who knows? But considering how much confidence NCSoft seems to have in the gameplay itself, I don't really see a downside. There really isn't much to hide. Even Throne of Liberty had Western's betas and stress tests despite already being available in Korea for a long time. So why not do it with AION 2? The second thing, just get rid of the separate early access server ecosystem. I don't see the point. If you're going to sell a 5-day head start, fine. But at least don't split the community before the game has even officially launched. MMOs are their best when everyone is experiencing the world together. That's what makes launch week special. The excitement, the chaos, thousands of players all discovering the same game at the same time. You lose a lot of that when players immediately feel separated. Maybe NCSoft has internal data showing the system works, I don't know. But what I do know is how players reacted to it before, and judging by the reaction this time, that opinion hasn't changed. Finally, the founder packs. Honestly, these are probably the easiest thing to fix. Keep everything that's already inside, keep the skins, keep the mounts, keep the titles, keep the early access. Just add actual value. Give the standard pack a small amount of premium currency. Give the deluxe pack a little more premium currency and include the premium battle pass. Then for the ultimate pack, add even more premium currency, the premium battle pass and 1 month of subscription. Done. Now suddenly those prices actually make sense. Now people feel like they're getting something meaningful for supporting your game early. And more importantly, you're sending the right message. You're telling players, we believe you'll still be playing a month from now. If somebody sticks around for a month, there's a really good chance they'll spend even more money anyway. That's just how MMO players work. If they're enjoying the game, they'll buy cosmetics, they'll buy convenience items, they'll buy skins for their favorite class. They'll probably end up spending far more than they originally planned. That's why these founder packs feel so strange. They seem to focus on maximizing day one sales instead of encouraging long-term investment. At the end of the day, I don't actually want AION 2 to fail. Quite the opposite, I want it to succeed. I want to have another MMORPG that I can sink thousands of hours into. Because the scary part isn't that AION 2 is a bad game. I think it's a good game. The scary part is that it feels like a good game being held back by completely unnecessary decisions. And that's exactly why this is so frustrating. So NCSoft, you still have time. Listen to the feedback, improve the founder packs, because right now AION 2 is walking a very dangerous line. It could become one of the best MMORPG launches we've had in years, or it could become another example of what not to do when releasing an MMORPG. I'd much rather make a video 6 months from now saying I was completely wrong, than make another video explaining how NCSoft ignored everyone. Again.